Thank you very much for inviting me here today. My name is Troels Andersen. I work for the city of Odense as a project manager and traffic planner. I work with cycle traffic for many years. And today I'm also representing the organization Cycling Embassy of Denmark, of which I'm the chairman. The organization is established 5 years ago. We just had our first anniversary. And we are an organization including a lot of different members. We are 26 members, of which we have private companies, manufacturers, consultants. We have 7 cities, like mine city and many other cities, but also NGOs, like the Cyclist Federation, cyclist shops. The Federation of Cyclist Shops are also members. Even the government are represented by the Road Directory, and we have the cancer prevention organizations, because cycling is very good to prevent cancer. So we have a website I'm showing at my last slide, where you can find more information in different languages, in English, German, Spanish, French, whatever. So I recommend you very much to find more knowledge about cycling. All the conclusions we have done in Denmark are more or less represented on that website. But today I'm going to tell you about the economical benefits of cycling, because it's sometimes it's an issue for us to explain why cyclists are important. We know that cycling is healthy, it's good for the environment, it's good for the cities, but actually it's also something which has an effect on local economy. This has to do with the 2 cities, the city of Odense, where I live and work, but also the city of Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. Copenhagen has 1 million inhabitants, and the greater Copenhagen has approximately 1.5 million. And the city of Odense is medium-sized with 200,000 inhabitants. When you look at the modal split, saying how many trips are done on bike, it's national, it's 16%. In the city of Odense it's 22%, which is quite high. And then Greater Copenhagen is similarly 23%, but if you take central Copenhagen, the municipality of Copenhagen, it's 33%. So there's quite a lot of cyclists in the Danish cities. And that's thanks to a lot of infrastructure and a lot of campaigning which we have done for more than 40 years. So we can say when it comes to the network for cyclists, we are almost completed in the main cities. We are doing a few missing links still, but it's almost completed, like 95% of the wanted infrastructure for cyclists. The side effect of that is what we're missing is the hard part. We're missing some main streets where we want to tackle car parking, so it's a fight against to having bike cars and have fewer parking spaces. And therefore we want to prove that cyclists really has an effect to local economy and to the shop owners as well. And to do that you need to make a proper survey, to make it scientific, and to show the figures and the conclusions to local politicians and local shop owners. We have looked into other countries like Sweden and Netherlands, where they have done some similar studies, finding out that cyclists spend less money than other ones, but they come more often. So in the long term, actually cyclists are spending the same amount per month as car drivers when it comes to those 2 countries. And then they conclude that good parking facilities for cyclists is very needed and very a critical issue if you want to have cyclists as customers and if you want to have that part of the income for the shop. So So the survey was set up to tell the story about Danish cities, and in this case we started with the city of Copenhagen. So the survey was based on 5,000 people who were responding to the survey, and out of those 3,000 people went shopping within a certain week. So it's quite common to be a cyclist, but it's also quite common to be a customer cycling to the shop. So we went out asking about how much money they spent on various items, but also the reasons for the mode of transport. Why are you cycling? Why are you going by car or even public transport? And then we were asking about parking conditions. How were they, and how would you like them to be, and how does it affect on your shopping habits? And then we come to the figures. This is the share of shopping trips, and you see on the left, you see the cycling is the dominant way of going shopping in Copenhagen. It's more or less equal to walking, but much higher than public transport or using car. On this next slide, you see how many euros are spent per shopping visits. So when you visit one shop, when you go in, open the door, you go into a shop, that's a shopping visit. And you see that people going by car spend more per visit than cyclists and pedestrians. And they mainly spend the money in shopping malls. So we have these three options, saying supermarkets, other shops, or shopping malls. Because they are quite critical, they exist in all main cities, and they take a lot of customers, and therefore they seem very important for the money spent in general, but here you see it's mainly for people coming by car, but also by public transport. This slide is showing how many visits you do in per shopping trip. If you're on one trip, you go to various number of shops, and therefore it might be more than one. The conclusion on this slide is that cyclists are visiting more shops per shopping trip. And then the next slide here is saying when you add the money, the euros spent per shopping trip, meaning more visits included in one shopping trip, then you see that people going by car spend more money per shopping trip than cyclists and pedestrians. And there might be a reason for that, because they are able to carry more goods in the vehicle. But if you take the share of the total sale, you see, except from shopping malls, cyclists and people going by car spend the same amount over time. When you take a month or a year. So if you accept the shopping malls, which are just a very few ones and sometimes placed outside of the city center, then they are equal between cyclists and car users. And you can show it in this way, saying how much euro are you spending per week per person. Then you see it's equal between cycling and car use, while walking and public transport are spending less euros. So this is just to say that cyclists are, as customers, just as important as car drivers when it comes to supermarkets and other shops. It's only when it comes to shopping malls that car drivers are more important customers, but it's also because that shopping malls are specially designed for car use. So the conclusion of this survey is that 6 out of 7 shopping trips are not done by car. And actually 1 out of 3 using public transport considers cycling instead. So there's a potential to have more cyclists. If you improve the conditions, you can actually have people leaving public transport to use the bike instead. That's good. Well, you can say public transport and cycling is equal, but we spend a lot of money supporting public transport, so we would rather spend that money for public transport on places where people are not able to go cycling. And then when you ask about what are the main reasons for using car instead of cycling, that it is because it's too heavy, it's too far away, or it's too big, it's a big volume of what you're going to carry. And then we found out that 25% of non-cyclists blame poor cycle parking for not using the bike, but using something else. So cycle parking, even that we have quite good conditions in Denmark, it's not good enough. It should be much better. There should be more stands for cyclists, but also better quality, and they should be placed very nearby the entrance of the shops, very nearby the trolleys where you have your goods. And that is something that the shop owners should consider more based on these figures. But we also found that 20% of the pedestrians are bothered by the bikes because bikes are just thrown in front of the shop because of the lack of good cycle parking. So it affects also pedestrians, and therefore cycle parking should be an issue for shop owners to concentrate much more on and to improve the number and improve the quality. As a city, we can affect that, but we don't do it very much. We tell them how much car parking they should have, and then quite often they implement even more than that. But when it comes to cycling, sometimes we don't tell them anything, or we just tell them a number. Then they place the number of bike stands on the wrong places in a very low quality, and therefore we don't get the results which are pointed out in the conclusions here. We don't get the full value of what cyclists are willing to spend in shops, and we don't get the full number of cyclists who are a potential for increase of cycling to shops. So we can say it's very good, but it can be improved much better, and it's something that the shop owners should take care of and be challenged by. We've seen a few good stories in Denmark. We've seen that the shop, the international chain called Lidl, they've taken out a few shops in Denmark, improving cycle parking facilities. They are having special parking facilities for cargo bikes, and they even present bike pass for their customers coming by bike. So we hope that Lidl will be the front leader in Denmark, and we're trying now to have them into a national campaign on how shop owners can improve the conditions to attract more cyclists to come and spend money in certain shops. And that could be a parameter for competition between the different supermarket companies. So what we are just about to do in Denmark is that we are going to do a new national survey, say, well, these figures were based from Copenhagen studies, and we want to do it in my city, in Odense, and 6 other cities, doing kind of the same, but we also want to know about the place of residence. So the people we are asking, we know where they're living, so we know the distance to the shop. We are going to include internet surveys so we can have more people answering these questions. And then we want to to have the correlation to modal splits, saying that we have the figures on modal splits in different cities and see how does that affect the number of cycling customers, and are there some general conclusions we can get out of that more than we had already. So what we're just about to do in some of the Danish cities is that we want to introduce more shopping events, because the possibility of having more goods than in an ordinary bag must be introduced to cyclists and car drivers. It is that most cyclists are having a backpack or small bag, but if you're going shopping, it's always too small. If you get a plastic bag on your up front, it goes into the wheel. It's a danger for you to use that way of transportation. So therefore, we are trying to find new products which can solve that. You can buy these trailers, bike trailers, but many people can solve the problem just by having minor things. At the top you see a product which you can buy already. It's a folding basket you can put on ordinary bikes. I got one, I've used it for 10 years now, and it gives me a possibility of having a lot of grocery on the bike itself. So we want to spread that out much more. The yellow bag you see one which is hanging on the bike, and you see one which is folded in this bag, the man standing here. It's quite a simple bag, but what it has is it has a hanger system, so you can hang it on the rack of the bike, and by that you can double the amount of grocery which you're able to bring home from the shop. So the thing is, we want to have the shops selling these bags. We want to give them away with printing on and so on, but try to have more people being able to transportate goods on the bikes, because it's a barrier to them, and it's very often a reason for people to take their car in city area is because of grocery, because of shopping, and we want to break that excuse for people. And here is my last slide, just showing the website of the Cycling Embassy. Please go there and see if there's anything useful for you to find. And there's a lot of all these 26 members. You are able to contact them individually or our secretariat to get knowledge or partnerships with any of the members. Thank you.